And cutting across light to the visuals of the historic splashdown of India's group captain Shubhanshu Shukla Axiom-4 mission crew that has returned to Earth from the International Space Station. Let's take a closer look.
Before the crew and also for the ground crews, getting that first confirmation of your crew exiting the spacecraft, getting good medical checks, and then coming out and getting a thumbs up is something everybody wants to be able to see, and we'll be able to see it soon.
Yeah. And it looks like the spacecraft is nestled into the nest.
Dragon, SpaceX, welcome aboard the recovery ship. Apology for the delayed call earlier. We are still working to transition the forward link. Recovery personnel are completing their final checks, and I will let you know when we are ready for translation across the deck to the egress platform.
Siddharth, of course, continues to be with us. Siddharth, as we are beaming these visuals live of the splashdown that is taking place off the California coast, once again, if you can talk to us about how this is a big feat for the space community and, of course, for India, which is a major milestone for the country, given that Shubhanshu Shukla is the second Indian astronaut in space after Rakesh Sharma.
To talk about Rakesh Sharma's mission, it happened in 1984 when India did not have a full-fledged space program. India barely had begun building small rockets at the time. So Rakesh Sharma's spaceflight at that time was more like a travel, or rather one-time travel, because, you know, there was no going back to space after that for any Indian. Why this 40-year gap? Because India did not have the rockets, India did not have the spacecraft, India did not have the capability or the kind of budgets required to undertake human spaceflight. Remember that human spaceflight is the most risky thing known to mankind, and also flying astronauts to space costs tons of money. This is not an easy feat, and it takes a certain amount of government funding, significant amount of government funding, running into billions of dollars to undertake such a program. So even if flying one time costs billions, let's remember that developing the rockets, the spacecraft, and the technology necessary for it costs far more. So India did not have any such ambition at that time because India's space program was taking baby steps during Rakesh Sharma's era. So Rakesh Sharma just flew as a one-timer, and then he came back. And there was not much of a gain from that particular flight because there was no technology there in India at that time to support what Rakesh Sharma had done. He had just gone as a visitor to the Soviet space station and come back. Obviously, it was a great moment then for the country, but there was no scientific outcome from that. But Axiom-4 is different because Axiom-4 should be treated more like a training mission ahead of India's own Gaganyaan. Let me just take a very layman's view of this Axiom-4 mission. Before you start driving your own car or start learning to drive on your own car, you perhaps go to a driving school and then learn along with a mentor or an instructor who will teach you how to drive on their specialized vehicle, right? This is pretty much like that for Shubhanshu Shukla, because an Indian has not flown to space in the last 40 years. So obviously there's no knowledge about how to fly to space in India. There's only theoretical knowledge. Once Shukla has undertaken this mission, he knows some of the basics, and that can be helped, or that can rather help him and ISRO to develop their own modules and develop how the Indian space program can go ahead. So this is more like a training mission where Shukla gets to learn a lot. Eventually, ISRO derives a lot from this learning of Shukla, and then the whole Indian space program benefits out of this. Think of it like a training mission, like going to a driving school ahead of driving your own car. Yeah.
Yes, stay with us, Siddharth. In fact, if you can talk to us more about the Gaganyaan mission, you know, what have been the costs involved in this particular project, and how much of this project would really help in the Gaganyaan mission of 2027?
So the Axiom-4 mission is more like a pooled cab to space, right? The Axiom-4 has 4 seats. All the Axiom missions have about 4 seats, and each user has to pay for each seat. So in the case of the Europeans, the Poland and Hungary governments paid for that respective seat. And then in addition to that, the Indian government paid for the Indian seat. So for Shukla's seat, India has learned to have paid about 550 crore Indian rupees, around about 65 million US dollars. So each passenger on board, that is the Indian and the 2 Hungarians, have paid 65 million for their seat. Peggy Whitson obviously did not pay because she's the commander and she's an employee of Axiom, which is the facilitator of this mission. So Peggy Whitson has flown as the commander. She's the mentor or the instructor for all of them. So she has gone to mentor them and train them. So obviously her seat was not paid. Her seat was borne by the company. But as far as the 3 others are concerned, the respective national governments paid for the seat. So this is obviously the cost of individual seats. So clearly the mission is significantly expensive. It also includes training costs for a backup candidate, because Indian astronaut Prashant Balakrishnan Nair has also trained in the US as a backup candidate. But since a backup was not necessary, Shukla was a primary and Shukla flew to space. Then as far as Gaganyaan is concerned, the Indian government initially announced over 10,000 crores for Gaganyaan, and later additional funding of at least 20,000 crores has been announced for Gaganyaan. So around about $3 billion of funding for Gaganyaan, and still counting, because Gaganyaan is a program that's ongoing. So certainly more funding will be provided as and when necessary. And clearly there is no lack of funding for Gaganyaan, because this is a program that's in progress. At every necessary stage, there's a funding hike that's been given for the program to be taking place.
Right. Right. Siddharth, stay with us for the benefit of our viewers also who are just tuning in. The SpaceX Dragon spacecraft carrying Shubhanshu Shukla and the multinational Axiom-4 crew, it had undocked from the International Space Station at 4:30 p.m. IST. That is on Monday, after which it began a 22-hour return journey to the Earth. Siddharth continues to be with us. Siddharth, if you can once again talk to us about the collaboration between NASA and the ISRO, and of course also break down the costs that was, the breakdown of the cost that was involved in this mission.
Actually had its inception in the year 2023, when Prime Minister Modi visited the US, and then President Joe Biden had announced that US would provide India advanced astronaut training at NASA's Johnson Space Center in the US, and also India and US will undertake a joint mission to the International Space Station. This was then US President Joe Biden's announcement in 2023, when Prime Minister Modi made a state visit to the US. This was mid-2023. So this mission's birth was at that time, when this was formally announced by the then US President. The idea behind this was that US also understood fully well, so did India, that India's Gaganyaan program requires a starting point and a practical experience. To talk about Gaganyaan, Prime Minister Modi announced Gaganyaan in 2018. He said it would happen in 2022, but due to various technical reasons and practical reasons, it did not happen in 4 years' time. And it still hasn't happened. Now we are 7 years since that initial announcement, but still it hasn't happened. But it's a work in progress. But in the meantime, what's happened is Indian astronauts went to Russia. They underwent training there during the pandemic years. They came back. They did more theoretical training in India. But theory can only take you so far when it comes to human space travel. You need to get practical experience. So that practical experience, how do you get it? You go to a private company or a sort of operator who can get you that experience, which is precisely why India has paid 550 crore rupees to Axiom to get this done. So the route for this particular mission was in 2023, when President Biden made that announcement in the presence of Prime Minister Modi, that such a mission would be undertaken. Indian astronauts would train in the US and so on.
Yes, yes. Siddharth, stay with us. Let's once again take a closer look of the splashdown that's taking place off the coast of California.
Getting some of that salt water off, maybe some of that plasma from reentry off.
Right, all nominal processes to ensure that that crew can safely egress the vehicle, but also that ground personnel are safely protected while handling the spacecraft and crew as well.